So here we are again, Craster Camper Van Kippers, and another little hack for my Citroen Relay van build. Now you'll probably realise that I'm sitting on the passenger side of the van and I'm actually on a single seat. Now it goes without saying that, like the vast majority of the Citroen Relays that you convert, it comes with a double passenger seat. And boy oh boy is it expensive to buy a single one. Now then, what I'm going to do today is just show you how I have adapted a driver's seat to fit in the van, but of course that in itself brings up one or two little problems, not least the seat belt, and I'll show you how I've overcome that problem. And I've waited quite a few months before knitting all of these bits of video together because I was wanting to wait until the van was due its MOT, and it went into a main dealer and came out of the main dealer 100% past its MOT, not a single comment or advisory on the seatbelt fitting that I'm sitting on at the moment. And so with that confidence, I'm now putting this together and not recommending it necessarily, but at least showing you that this is what I've done, and if you want to apply it to yourself, well then give it a go and see what your local garage says. But of course at the end of the day, the main thing is if we have a crash, is the passenger going to be safe in the seat? And my honest opinion is yes, they are. So then, here's the double seat in my 2009 Citroen Relay, but all I'm really wanting to do is bring your attention to the location of this guy here, which is the seatbelt retainer for the offside passenger, but more importantly is the height and the location of it within the seat. Now then, this is my driver's seat, which of course hasn't been modified at all. When you tilt the seat, the rear of the seat is pivoting on two of these bolts, one on this side and of course one on the other. Now these aren't all that substantial. They're probably the threaded portion is probably only about 8mm, 10mm at best. And so when we come over to what I've done with the driver's seat on the passenger side, you'll see why it is that I've removed these. I did have the idea of making a bracket to fit to the seat frame that would slide backwards and forwards with it. But then I've actually then realised that, see, this was it, and I was going to fix it on there, but I can now get rid of that, because I then came up with the idea of, well, in my shed I've actually got some 13mm threaded bar. So what I've actually done is I've removed these two, which were sort of the pivot point of the seat when you adjust the rake of the seat, which, to be honest, I don't do very often. And I've had to drill it out ever so slightly on the inside, and I've passed this 13mm threaded bar all the way through from there, and to give it more strength and rigidity I've gone the full width of the seat and also replaced the one on this side. Now you'll see they've got back nuts on and nylocks on the outside, and I had some spare black electrical conduit which I've put over the threads just to sort of tidy the job up a bit. And then here we are down through behind the seat bracket, the sort of the lumbar support adjuster. I've passed the steel cable of that fitting down, and I didn't have to really adjust it at all. It was the perfect dimension for this threaded bar, and I've simply put it on there with another 19mm nylock nut and nipped the thing up as tight as I can, and that's brought it out to be in pretty much the perfect position on the seat. So once I get all this dust and shit cleared off of here and get the plastic cover back on, I think, you know, that's going to be quite tidy, and the seat maintains its ability to be adjusted in every which way that you want it to be. And of course, because it's a part of the main structure of the seat, I've just unlocked the swivel, so you'll see that it goes backwards and well, round and around I should say, and equally when the seat is slid backwards and forwards, then it goes with it. Now the other thing about it, of course, is that I have left the original one on. This one is on a pre-tensioner, and it was just far too much faff to remove it, and I think overall it probably is a neater job to just leave it where it is. Maybe you will see that the yellow plug for that pre-tensioner has been disconnected. Now The thing is, I was expecting there to be some sort of warning lights on the dash, but absolutely no, not a problem. Everything seems to be working perfectly. So the only essential difference between this seat and how it was originally is that it just now has what is essentially a standard seat belt on it with no pre-tensioner, but obviously I would say that is safe enough. Then maybe only one other final comment about it. It's not a big deal for us. Lisa, who tends to sit in this seat, didn't really find it a problem or an inconvenience. And that is that the built-in armrest is, I suppose, technically on the wrong side. So you don't have an armrest in the middle of the van. But as you can probably see, I have made myself a little coffee cup table for when we're traveling. That accommodates the cups, maybe a phone and a bowl of sweeties, and that's perfect. So that kind of sort of doubles up as an armrest as well. Now then, with regards to the swivels, those are the CTA swivels, which are really good, though they work perfectly for us. I see some people complain about the increase in height, saying that affects their driving position. Well, quite honestly, no it doesn't. And there are some aftermarket lower height seat bases which people then buy to put the seat onto, to accommodate the extra bit height. Well, if it wasn't for the fact that I get out of this van and drive my standard van, and out of my standard van and drive this van, I think after a couple of miles you just wouldn't notice the difference. So personally, I would say save your money and use the basic ones. And from the driver's seat point of view, keeping the standard height seat base is also worked out, because that's where I've got my leisure batteries. Now under that seat, it's a bit snug, but they're well insulated from shorting out as well. I've got two 110 amp AGM batteries, and well, they basically take up no space at all, because what else would you normally have under there? Usually just old shoes or a couple of tools or what have you, but I think that's a far better use of space. So what's all this cost me then? Well, as opposed to the £600 or whatever that you see them advertised online, that actual single driver seat cost me from a local scrapyard £60. And then the single base, because of course that gets discarded as part of the double seat when you take it out, so you will also need a seat base, and a switched on salvage yard will realize the demand for them. So I ended up paying £30 for the seat base, which is the standard size, standard height, and couple of bolts, and the whole thing just fitted in perfectly. So you're looking at, well, certainly less than 100 quid for seat base, seat cover, and a bit of threaded rod and a couple of nuts. So then in closing, you might think this has all been a good idea. It's certainly a cheaper idea. I mean, obviously, if you want to go out and spend 600 quid for a seat and then another 100 quid or 150 quid for a base, that's quite a considerable amount of money. That's a long way towards, you know, a really useful piece of equipment on your van. Like, for instance, a Truma heater, it's probably half the cost or whatever, just for a seat. So get yourself down to a salvage yard and have yourself a poke around and see what you can find. Admittedly, if you're going to have to take a seat out of a 2007 van, it might be in a bit of a state, but then, as you've seen, just stick a couple of cheap seat covers on. I'm not too precious about how they look, but I think it smartens it up quite nicely. So give it a go, see what you think. I've waited to make this little film until after the van has been in for its MOT at a main dealer, and like I say, nobody had any comments about it, so I'm going to make the assumption it's perfectly safe to use. Cheers. Thank you. Bye bye now.